Hope is indeed a Nigerian, no doubt about that. Now, from poetry to land. Yes, I mean the very thing we all walk on. This book, titled The Essential Guide to Land Acquisition in Nigeria, was written by Fawehinmi, a teacher, business consultant, and real estate professional who currently works with a top international organization. If you are ever going to buy land, or you already have a piece of land somewhere, or you are renting any property for residential or business reasons, or you even live on land at all, and I hope you do, then you may want to explore this book. Whether you are young or old, land should interest you, and so should a book like this. But first, let's check out some teasers from it before you watch my interview with its author, Fawehinmi. Congrats, nice book. The Essential Guide to Land Acquisition in Nigeria. Why a book on land?
Anything you want to do in this world, you need land. Even the Air Force needs land for the planes to go into the air. So how do you acquire the land? What are the options? What are the strategies? There are people, for example, that need to acquire land for a short term, that go to acquire land for a long term. There are people that need to acquire land for specific purposes, that go to acquire land for different reasons. So this book is a guide. We call it a guide because it provides information on the various ways you can acquire land based on your need and how to effectively do due diligence while you're acquiring the land. So the idea is, if you wanted to go to the stock, buy a share on the stock exchange, you have a lot of reports to buy from. I mean, you get dailies, newspaper reporting on it. But if you want to buy property in Nigeria, for example, you don't have that. But this book helps you to know this is what I should do, this is what I should watch out for, and this is how I should go about acquiring land for your use.
Now, I noticed from your introduction, one of the things that inspired you to write this book was you bought your first piece of land and found out that it had already been bought. It had been bought before you bought, you paid money for it. And then you went for the next piece of land, another problem, and then the third one, another problem, and you kept having problems, you know, with your, that seems to be a common issue in Nigeria. How serious is that issue in Nigeria? How major is it?
Oh, it's a major issue, an issue that is not just about loss of money, but also loss of life. We had a very bad situation in Lagos State recently, where the head of a government parastatal was actually murdered related to land acquisition in the part of Lagos. So the question is, because there's a lot of contest over land, I mean, from owners to squatters to people that have various rights. And because we do not have a very effective land record system in Southwest Nigeria, in Nigeria generally, so you don't know. In other parts of the world, if I wanted to buy any piece of land, I would just go on the cadastral with my smartphone, and I can know who bought it, who sold it to who, how much, what's the value, what's the rent, and all of that. Unfortunately, we don't yet have that in Nigeria, and that's why we have the issue. Sadly, Lagos had the land system as far back as the 1900s. But yes, but we have deliberately ensured that it didn't work, because once we knew we own each bit of land in Lagos, then we know who stole money to buy the land. So it's a deliberate strategy to ensure that people cannot determine it. The other part of it is that land is a very peculiar asset. So if I own a car, that's the only right on that car, ownership. But land, there are many rights on land. So I can own land, and what they say in that case is that I have a right to the land, and the owner of the land has what is called a bundle of rights: a right to buy, a right to sell, a right to build, a right to destroy, a right to give, a right to give it as a pledge, a right to make it a mortgage. He has almost 10 rights because he owns it. So if you are my brother, I can give you one of those rights and say, you develop it, right? So I own the land, but I give you the right to develop. So I can sell the land because I have 9 of the 10 rights. You have 1, but because you had the one building the house on it, you can also go to sell. And that's what happens in Lagos, for example, where you go buy a property from an estate and the man says, so properties, and then you buy the property, and then when you now want to sign the agreement, you see another name. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So in other countries, you can trace that and know who you should buy from. But that's a problem we have here. We don't have that. So one of the things this book talks about is due diligence, on how you need to know who actually owns what you are obtaining. And not only know, you must also know why he is giving it to you.
I noticed here that even people who rent properties, you just want to rent a flat, for example, typical middle class Lagos citizen wants to rent a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom flat. You know, I noticed here that there are a lot of things such a person needs to know about properties and land that the average person does not know about. I noticed that from your book. What's your take on that? How ignorant, permit me to use the word, how ignorant are we when it comes to land acquisition in Nigeria from your observation?
I think the level of ignorance is very high, and it's just because of, for example, I have a degree in estate management, so I did courses in land law in the university, and it was only 12 departments, so the lawyers and the estate surveyors, and most likely land surveyors that come there. So somebody who is in biz admin, somebody who studied in medicine or faculty of pharmacy, he doesn't get to have any interaction with land. Unfortunately, when this person wants to start a business, the first asset he needs to obtain is land. But he's taught how to buy the equipment, what equipment it is, but the land in which he's going to situate it. So the level of knowledge about land generally is very low. In fact, I remember when this book, we're working on this, somebody was saying, he wish it could be possible for us to bring this book, step it down to the level of a secondary school person, to be able to appreciate. And that's why we use a language that was easy for everybody to understand, to say, land, and then sometimes we also get into the issues around people assume that, is it not just to buy land down the road? I mean, I'll just go and tell Alaji or I'll tell Chief and then I buy it. But you realize that there's a lot of things we do not know.